Something quicker and more effective than the Python water changer? Tell me more. Stay tuned. Hello fin lovers, it's Mr. B and welcome back to the channel. If you're like me, you're always looking for an easier way to do whatever you're trying to do in the aquarium hobby. For the longest time, when I only had a few tanks, I was using buckets and a gravel vacuum. Basically moving water out of my tank and into my tank 5 gallons at a time. Once you've received the invitation to the Multi-Tank Syndrome Club of America, you need something a little bit different because those 5-gallon buckets really start to wear on your back. So if you're like me, you go out and you find something like the Python water changer. If you're not familiar, basically it is a device that hooks up to a faucet in your house, and you have a way of adding water to your tank and removing water from your tank, utilizing the water pressure from your faucet. So if it's a kitchen sink or a bathroom sink or a utility sink, however strong that particular force is with the faucet is going to give you some good suction on your tanks. Some of the problems with the Python, there's a lot of wastewater when you're trying to establish your siphon, and if you have tanks that are underneath the level of your sink, the particular Python pretty much has to stay on completely to keep the suction going to drain the water from those lower tanks. In my apartment setting, unfortunately, I did not have an option to not put tanks on bottom racks. So drawing a suction and getting a vacuum relieving the water, I solely was relying on the Python water changer. I wanted to look and see if there was something that would enable me not to lose so much water with the function of the Python. And I found it. And I think you're going to enjoy what I teach you in the next 2 to 3 minutes. The first thing is we're still going to be using the Python water changer. So we have here, this is the vacuum tube itself. This is the part that is generally in your aquarium sucking the water up. The other side, there is a nozzle that screws onto your faucet and is using the water pressure from your faucet to create the vacuum. Instead of doing that, I have found this nice little device. This is a VivoSun 800 gallon per hour water pump. It's a pond pump. And basically the way these work is you put them in your pond, the water comes through the pump, and this little section up here is a nozzle, and that can be led to something to spray water up in your pond, whether you're trying to just create some ripples on the water or you're looking for a nice fountain in the particular pond. This little device is excellent. But if you just jury rig it just a little bit, this turns into a very, very good device to have during water changes. Basically, this end of the tube of the Python is going to connect to one of the nozzles that comes with the pump. You're then going to simply take a hose clamp and clamp the Python hose onto the nozzle and then screw it into the pump. Now, instead of the water spraying up, it's going to spray through the tube and out the other side, which is this device. Now, you can utilize this to draw water into your tank as well as to draw water out of your tank. If you're drawing water in, you simply are going to put this into your tank, and this will go into whatever receptacle you have the water that's ready to go into your aquarium. In my case, it is a 5-gallon bucket at the moment. Again, apartment fish room. But when I have a larger installation, I plan on putting these into larger tubs that will already be in the fish room. So the water going back into the fish tanks is going to be the same temperature as the water that is coming out of the fish tank. This particular process is very quick and easy. I'm going to demonstrate on one of my tanks in a second how this process works. But basically this is 800 gallons per hour. Now again, just like anything, the 800 gallons per the 800 gallons per hour is best case scenario. If you have this particular device in a lower tank and you're trying to push water out, it's probably going to be a little slower. If you have it in an upper tank, like I have a tank that stands probably 6 feet off of the ground, when the water is coming out of the tank, it is very, very quick. However, pumping water back into it, it slows down a little bit. So the 800 gallons per hour is a best case scenario. So it's not going to be super fast on all of your tanks, depending upon where they are. But the nice thing about it is if this is in a receptacle, let's say a 55-gallon bucket, or they sell 200 and 300 and 400-gallon tubs that you can use for water storage. If you were to use it in something along those lines, you're not wasting any water anymore because you're simply putting it into that receptacle and pumping the water out. When that receptacle is near empty, you just simply fill that receptacle. So you're not losing water going down the drain while you're trying to get suction on your Python hose if you were just using it the way they sell the Python. So let me take you into my bedroom where my L181 plecos are, and I'm going to do a live demonstration of how this works. So stay tuned. Okay, fin lovers, so here we are standing in front of my L181 pleco tank, which also has a small group of high fin Paleatus in it. And right now what we need to do is we need to start this procedure. So we're going to be putting the pump into the aquarium. I generally do not like to put it on the bottom if I am doing something that has substrate, because it does tend to pick up some of that sand and I don't want it to get into the impeller and ruin the pump. Right now I am simply struggling to plug in the pump. Technical difficulties abound, but once we get it plugged in, as we can see, the water is going to start letting out. I like to see if I can do about a 20 to 25% water change twice a week on all of my tanks, especially ones that have plecos in it. Over here, I'm going to be pointing to a piece of floating zucchini. That came off the fork that's in the back of the tank that was feeding the tank earlier this morning. I did see there were some juveniles still hanging on to the zucchini when I started the process, so I decided that I'm going to let them eat it, but that will be removed by end of day. What is happening at the moment is the water is going down a drain in my house because it is still winter. But if it was spring or summer or even fall, I would be pumping this into my flower beds, my flower pots. There's some great fertilizer in there, especially if you can get any of the mulm that would be at the bottom. But with this process, it generally doesn't happen. So again, trying to get about 25% of the water out here. And the you can see some of the Paleatus starting to get active there as some of the water is leaving the tank. You can see one of the L181s, actually two of the L181s inside their cave. You can just see their tanks, or their tails, I should say. So what we are going to do is we are going to stop this procedure as we are getting close. and then we will look into what is our next step. Stay tuned. The next important step is to make sure you use a dechlorinator. I use Seachem Safe, which is the powdered version of Seachem Prime. It is easier to dose when you have these little measuring spoons. They're measured in dashes and so forth. So this one, I usually just use the measuring spoon that is 1/64th of a tablespoon. Put it in there. I do not have a lot of chlorine in my water, but I do have some. So I always make sure I include a dechlorinator during the water change. Going to stop right here, and we'll pick it up when we're filling. Okay, fin lover, after adding the dechlorinator and matching the temperature of the water coming into the tank to what is in the tank, all we need to do is place the hose in and turn it on. This will probably take upwards of about 2, maybe 3 minutes. You can see the little burps going on in there. That's just the air coming out of the line. Very important to match the temperature to your tank. What I do sometimes when I'm doing my quarry tanks, if I'm trying to get them to breed, I will go 3 to 4 degrees lower than what the tank is. But on something like the 181s, even though they do have some of the high fin Paleatus quarries in there, I do want to match temperature, which is about 78 degrees. So as the water's filling up the tank, I think it's at this time that I tell you that the process of wasting water when you're getting the siphon going is now happening in my bathroom as I'm using a 5-gallon bucket to capture the water where the pump is. In the future, when I do have my fish room, I am planning on having tubs with water that is already room temperature. So all I need to do is to put the pump in one of those tubs and pump it from there. That way I don't really have to worry about temperature matching. I can actually dechlorinate that entire tub if I need to, and the process will be a lot more streamlined. But right now, I believe I waste less doing it this way because I can go in and stop the water going into the bucket at any point, which I think I'm going to do right now because it'll probably have enough in the bucket to finish this job. So while you're watching this, let me just turn off the spigot. And I'm back, fin lovers. As you can see, I turned off the water in the bathroom, but the water in the bucket is still there, so the pump is pumping it nicely into the tank. And this whole process is going to take less than 10 minutes. How do you guys do your water changes? Do you use something similar to the water python? Are you still using buckets? Do you do automatic water changes? Put your comments down below. I'd be interested to see how everybody else is doing it. For me right now, this works. Just going to let it keep going. I like to bring it up to about here. So we're probably going to have just another minute as the water is piling in. You can see there's a very nice stream going on. Everybody down here looks nice and healthy and happy. It's one of the main reasons why I do manual water changes, is because it allows me to get in there and see what's going on in the tank. Make sure I'm hitting every tank at least twice a week while I do their water changes. Well, it looks like we're just about there, fin lovers. So let me catch you on the flip side. Okay, welcome back, fin lovers. I really hope you found value in this video. There are so many different ways that you can do things in this hobby, and I'm always looking for a better way. So this works for me in my apartment, but how are you guys doing water changes where you are? Put some comments down there. Let me know. Let me know if this is something you're going to try. Let me know if it's something that you tried and it didn't work for you. I like to have conversations, and I really like hearing what is going on in your fish rooms. So until next time, fin lovers, remember, you're going to need a bigger tank.